Hello, everybody. Welcome to Attitudes with Andy. My name is Andy, and thank you so much for being here each and every week. So, discipline, getting shit done, being productive. I think we could all use a lot more of that in our lives, including me. Sometimes I get stuck in that old scroll hole. And today we have somebody who is all of those things, disciplined, structured, getting after it. He has built a wonderful nutrition-based company selling surf, snowboard, skateboard, protein powders, recovery bars, all of that, which we will get into more. He literally cannot keep stock on the shelf, so it's going very well. But alongside that, he's also completing his PhD in surf things, nutrition, and also being very active in the community, but quite literally active. He's run 161 kilometers. He ran a marathon the other day. The man is a bit of a weapon. But most of all, he has some amazing insights into running his business and also just keeping everything together. I'm always amazed by you. I'm like, how are you humaning right now? So we're going to delve into how you manage all of this, how to build discipline, and your journey of building your business. So Ricky Dann, welcome to the podcast.
You nailed that intro. Well done.
Thank you.
Stoked to be here.
Stoked to be here. That is the name of his business.
It is.
Okay, so I butchered quite a lot of that. So we will define your business. But before we do, I want to talk about this 161 kilometers that you ran. First of all, why 161 and not 160?
161 is exactly 100 miles.
Oh.
Yeah, well, it's like 160.89 something, but 161. So that's 100 miles. And that's what I wanted to do, was the 100-mile milestone. So
okay.
yeah, it's not just some random number I made up one night.
Yeah, I was just like, as an OCD person, I'd prefer 160, but I'll live with 161 point something 88. Okay, so why the Jeff did you do that?
That's a big question. That derived from many years of just doing hard things. And I guess I always just want to provide myself with the evidence that anything is possible. And I heard of 100 miles and didn't think that would be possible for anyone, yet alone me. And so I literally just tried it to see if I could do it.
When did you do this?
That was end of last year. I think it was like October, November last year.
Okay. So you were like, yeah, let's give that a crack. Did you train for it?
Yeah, a long time. I don't want to say I'm like Goggins or anything with no training doing 100 miles. There was a lot of training, and I think people should respect that process and not just go and kill themselves doing some stupid ultra endurance event. But yeah, it was about like 9 months of solid training, but it was coming off the back of other ultra endurance events, which certainly helped sort of build the base. But yeah, I just did it by myself, not in an event. I just had my mum and my brother as my aid stations who were on the bike and driving along the way and just sort of leapfrogging me, and had a lot of the Hedges Run community come along and join for 5 or 10 Ks, and it was just an awesome day out. Yeah.
Wow. Because I watched the reel of it and seeing like your segments of how you were at each milestone, and at one point it looked like you were crying. Were you crying?
I did at 120 kilometers.
Yeah, and
was
I think
the lowest
you were like,
point
why?
of the whole thing. Yeah.
Why am I doing this?
That's why you sign up for ultra events, is because you know you will ask yourself why you're out here, and that's why you do it. So to me, and it sounds crazy just saying this out loud, but the first 120 Ks was just the warm-up to get to the point where you think you are done. And I've had this in other events before, like the Ironman and stuff, where you want to get to the stage where you think you're done, and then you push through it, and then you get on the other side and you learn all these lessons and blah, blah, blah. But for me, it was at that 120 mark where I stopped. It was just the worst conditions possible to run in. It was freezing cold, pouring with rain, super windy. Like the rain was just coming in horizontally when I was running, and it was just I was in a very bad place, and I had a marathon to go. My right knee blew up, and so I couldn't even like weight bear on it, and I was like, how can I possibly run another marathon in these conditions? And I did, and that's what, that's where the biggest lessons have come from. That is like when you think you are just completely out, there is still so much more left in the tank. And so, yeah, I'm really glad that that moment happened. I think in the reel you're talking about, is it when I'm just curled up in a ball on the bench and I'm getting like pat on the back? Yeah.
I was like, oh no, man's crying.
Yeah. That was a bad time, but that's the reason you do it. So, yeah.
Holy, that just made me emotional. That's so nice.
Yeah.
And it looked like you had so much support.
It was amazing. It truly, and that's why over the last 3 years, I've done quite a few challenges like that, and the support from not just the running community, but just ultras in general. There's such a supportive community, whereas other sports, everyone's competing against each other. So this year is the first year I haven't signed up for some stupid event, and my goal has literally just been to support as many other people as I could, because that's what I received over the last 3 years. So, and I've been really lucky to be able to join quite a few people's challenges already this year.
Yeah, I've seen that. I was like, what is up with Ricky Dan? And like, you ran an insane amount the other day supporting your friend who was like, in the desert,
my mate
or a
ran
different
from
state?
No, it was here. So he ran from the Burleigh Hill to the Gabba. Is that the one you're talking about?
I'm not sure.
There's been quite a few, and so I've been super lucky to actually be a part of it. But yeah, my mate ran from Burleigh to the Gabba, raising money for a charity.
Like in Brisbane?
Yep.
Oh, that's really far.
It's really cool. I didn't even think you could get there by foot with the highway, and it just winds all through the suburbs, and it's exactly 100 kilometres. So,
oh shit.
Yeah, and then Sean Bell, my other mate, completed a 200 miler. Maybe that's the one you saw as well.
Yeah, I think that was.
So I joined him for the back half of that, and that was just a truly, truly incredible thing to be a part of. Like a 200-mile race. I think only 5 or 6 people started the race, and there's only a few in the world. It's a very special thing, and he was the only one that finished. And so to be a part of just a crew that helps someone travel by foot 200 miles, which is 320 kilometers, is truly special. And just the way he went about it, like he was just still so positive, and it just, everything about it blew me away. And it's certainly re-stoked that fire to like go and do something again, because I thought I wanted 1 year off of just helping other people, but I saw that and I was like, oh, you need to get back into something.
Oh, wait, so how much did you run with him?
I did about 90-ish Ks. It was sort of like start, stop.
Yeah, okay.
So it was the last 100 Ks I joined with him. So, which was crazy because I hadn't done any endurance training before that. Like I'd been consistent with my running, but just like 10 Ks and the social run club sort of runs, which are fairly short. And I had no idea what to expect going into the pacing. And I ended up running 80 kilometers non-stop, like in one stretch. So that was pretty cool to just be able to rock up and run 80 kilometers non-stop. I was pretty proud of myself doing that.
That's nuts.
Yeah. But it is built off the back of years of this training. So it's, once again, not something that I'm condoning to go out and do stuff like that. Definitely respect the process, but yeah.
Holy, okay. That's amazing. On to Stoked, your business, your baby. Tell us about Stoked. What is Stoked Nutrition? Stoked
Nutrition has changed and evolved quite a lot over the last few years. Right now, with the new branding and everything, we're a sports nutrition brand tailored to action and adventure sport athletes and enthusiasts. So there's sort of two components to the business. We have the product side of things and the services. So at the moment, we have different supplements. And we're about to release the first range of nutritional bars, which is super exciting. Just a little plug there.
Always plug. We love it.
Yeah, and that's where the focus of the business will go in the next near future. And I think that's going to be the game-changing product for the brand of these bars. So the focus will definitely switch to that. But then we also offer nutritional coaching. So a big passion of mine is bringing an evidence-based approach and bringing a science-based approach into these adventure communities that don't really have that just yet. So I want to pair up, surfers with qualified dietitians and nutritionists and high-quality health professionals, because at the moment there's just so much bullshit online with all these surf gurus or these self-proclaimed nutritionists that have these alternative ways that are just, quite a lot of them are really dangerous. So I want to standardize, if you want nutritional advice, see an accredited professional And I want to provide a platform where if you're a surfer, I will pair you up with a qualified dietitian or a nutritionist that is also a surfer, so they can empathize with the constraints of being a surfer, what it's like to be a surfer, or if you're a snowboarder or a skier. I want to build a team with all these professionals that are specialized in these different action sport areas, and sort of provide that platform, for the community. So
that's such a niche, but also probably not such a niche because I'm sure it's such a big community, surfing, snowboarding, skateboarding, skiing, like all of those. That's just something I never would have thought of, especially about the nutrition around it.
Yeah, the whole industry, since surfing got announced in the Olympics, the last Olympics just gone, the whole action sport industry is just booming. It's a very good area to be in. Yeah, it is. Even, like mountain biking and there's just so many things now that are becoming a bit more mainstream. So I think it's just a smart decision. If you are into any sort of action and adventure sports, find a way to climb on this growth, because it's becoming somewhat mainstream now to do these things that previously we just thought were hobbies, whereas now we're accepting that, they are high performance sports that are in the Olympics. People are taking it very seriously. And so, I just want to help sort of increase the quality of training, nutrition, all the sports science side of things that I am a specialized practitioner in. I just want to help that growth. So,
and why the name Stoked?
It's just me. It's the brand. It's a common ground, and it's my way of tying together the community that I want to build. So the feeling of stoked, everybody knows what that feels like, but it looks very different between people. So for me, it might be getting spat out of a barrel surfing, but for someone else, it might be, hitting a big jump on a snowboard, or getting in sort of like flow state in a podcast if you're a podcaster. And so the feeling is very mutual. And I wanted to play on that feeling and say, if you are someone who chases that feeling, which is what action and adventure sport enthusiasts do, they want that feeling of stoked. I want to provide you with help to have more of that feeling.
The feel for it.
Yeah, so that's why a little slogan is like fuel the feeling, fuel your stoke. And so it's providing you with high quality nutrition that can put you in positions to experience more stoke.
I feel so re-energized right now. Like I can feel your passion. It's so nice.
Thanks. Yeah. No, there's a lot of passion there. So
yeah, one would hope. So let's just rewind a little bit. So starting your business, I would love to know about that, because so many of the listeners are very like entrepreneurial like that and like want to start something, but obviously it can be very daunting. I can imagine being like, oh, where do I start? How do I do it? So yeah, how did you first get the idea and then, execute? Back in the day.
Yeah.
Tell us the year.
I wish there was some sexy story that's like, I had this game-changing idea that I just brought to fruition. But when I started in business, I had no idea what business was. I have no experience in business. I have no family or friends that have started businesses. I had read a lot of books about CEOs, entrepreneurs, and I knew that those types of people, I wanted to be more like them.
Why? What was it about them?
The traits that they had, I respected them, and that's what I wanted to be like.
What traits?
Being ambitious, being genuine leaders, game changers, and being like proactive in trying to solve issues in society rather than sort of just being the victim of society and just saying it is what it is. They're actually sort of challenging that status quo, and I love that. So I guess the reason I got into it is because I was just curious. I was like, what is business about? I knew that all business essentially is you providing value to someone, or you solving someone's issue and then them just compensating you for that. So I just asked, what value can I bring to any community? I knew that my sports science background was very extensive. I've got a lot of knowledge there that a lot of people find valuable. And my passion it started in surfing, but all action sports. So the first business, I actually just started creating online training programs for surfers. So it was called Flow Performance Training. And it all started when COVID hit. So long story short, I was working in Finland when COVID hit, came home unexpectedly. That's a whole nother story.
Okay.
Had like the dream gig over there. I loved every second of it. Came home and just had so much time, as everyone did, peak lockdowns. So I just used that time. I put my head down and just started making these programs. I said, I saw all these top people in my field, all of these really high up people that I was striving to be. A lot of them were just losing their jobs with COVID. And I was like, it was the first time I questioned my path, going, there's actually a lot of uncertainty. And
wait, sorry, when you mean top people, what industry are we talking about? Your PhD or?
Just high performance. So I was mostly a strength and conditioning coach for the large majority of my professional life. So working with sporting organisations.
Okay.
So my goal was always to work towards working for Tennis Australia or Cricket Australia or Surfing Australia. And so there's high performance managers at these centres who are like the pinnacle of our industry. And so many of the sports science staff and high performance managers were losing their jobs, and all this stuff was happening just overnight. And so it was the first time I thought to myself, like, I need to find other ways to bring in income. I need to find out passive income ways, or just something to create a bit more security. And so then I thought, I can easily make programs. That's what I do for a living. Surfers will appreciate it. I'll put the time in now. And so I spent hundreds of hours going down to a local gym, filming hundreds of exercises, making these programs, making these PDFs, building a website. I had no idea how to do any of this, and spent hundreds and hundreds of hours doing that. And I sold one to some random bloke from Wollongong who I never heard from again. But that was as much of a mistake as it was also the best thing that happened to me, because I had to ask the question, what is there a market for? And that's what I didn't think of, was that is such a saturated market, the whole surf training there. And there are just so many surf gurus and people that have apps and all these really cool things. And I was just putting together these crappy little PDF documents with templates of training. So anyway, that's how it started. And then I asked the really simple but important question, like, what is there a market for? And that's when I shifted to nutrition. That's when it just hit me, and I was like, there is nothing out there nutrition-wise for these guys. There is so much training-related stuff, but there is nothing in nutrition.
Which is so true, because, well, obviously I wouldn't be targeted because that's not my genre, but I haven't personally seen any, apart from Stoked Nutrition. I'm really enjoying where this conversation is going, but just quick question. When you only sold one, how did that feel? Because I feel like a lot of people would kind of be crushed by that and be like, oh, okay, well, I'm throwing the towel in, this feels horrible. Like, what was your reaction to it? I didn't feel any of that. And I think it's because I've just hardwired myself to look for the lessons that I've learned. And I look back over everything that I did. I didn't know how to use a DSLR camera. I didn't know how to use editing software to put videos together. I didn't know how to build a website. And all of these things that I did have proved to be the most valuable lessons that I'm even learning now with the business. So I knew that I couldn't fail, because even if I didn't sell any, I'd still learn all these skills, whereas most people would have just been sitting at home watching movies. And that's just the sort of mindset that I've sort of trained myself to have. And I'm really proud of that. And obviously it's not ideal not selling any, but I knew that when it comes to business, like, your first idea probably isn't going to be the idea that you run with and make $1 billion from in 10 years' time. Business is about, like, reflecting, what does the customer want, what's there a market for, and then just making adjustments. And so I just saw that, even though I rebranded completely, so it started off as Flow Performance Training, and then I went to Surf Science Nutrition. I didn't see that as a failure. That was just a stepping stone to get to Surf Science Nutrition. And then I look back at Surf Science Nutrition, that was just a stepping stone to get to Stoked. So I never really, failure to me I still struggle to explain how I look at failures, because, you could define that as a failure, but that was like the best thing that's taught me everything that I know now. Yeah. Yeah. It's not failure. It's just like redirection. Okay. So frog at my throat. That's really, really good. I think in my head, as soon as you were like, yeah, I wasn't really bothered by that, I was like, oh God, you're really built for business. The fact that you're like, it's not failure, it's just lessons learnt that then got you to where you are now. And had you not gone through that, maybe you wouldn't be where you are now.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be. So you then was like, okay, what does the market need? Market needs nutrition. Then you were like, then what happened?
Yeah. So I just started asking surfers in the lineup, like, what issues are you guys having as surfers with nutrition? And I got some pretty consistent feedback with not knowing what to eat before surfs, because most people go out for a surf and on the slopes and don't eat anything beforehand, which blows my mind. Because like, if you think of running a marathon, if you ran a marathon without a fueling strategy or a nutrition strategy and you ate nothing and drank nothing, you would be seen as crazy. But the action sport world, these guys go for 4 and 5 hour surfs, don't eat anything before, nothing during, no water, no nothing, but it's just normal. So yeah, the messages that I was getting when I was asking what issues are you guys having were quite consistent. And then I literally just built products around that to solve those problems. So I came out with the pre-surf fuel supplement, which is just like a little supplement dissolves in water, have it before, and then like a recovery blend for after, which, yeah, super successful. I put a order in at the start that I didn't even think I would sell half of them, and yeah, completely ran out of all my stock, and so that was good. But I knew deep down bars is just where it would be. I just didn't have the knowledge as to how to make them, and that's what has taken the longest time. Supplements are easy. You just get the macros that you want, you send them to like a manufacturer, and then you just tinker with like the flavors, but they just add a flavoring. Whereas with bars, there's so much more complicated with, if you change an ingredient, it changes the whole flavor. Like there's no...
And the texture of it as well.
The texture, there's just so much to it. So that's why I started with supplements, because it was just genuinely easier and I could get that out there sooner. And so I've just spent the last couple of years now learning how to do the bar stuff, and yeah, finally getting there, which is really cool.
That's so, so exciting. So what year did you start Stoked Nutrition, or what it was back then?
So I launched Stoked Nutrition earlier this year. It's only very recent. I had Surf Science for nearly 2 years.
Yeah, that's what I meant, Surf Science.
Yeah, it's Surf Science, yeah. So that was nearly 3 years ago now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm just like putting myself in your shoes and also thinking about how I would think, but also how maybe like other people would think. Okay, so you have the idea. You're like, cool, I want to do the nutrition thing. I want to make like a pre-thing and a recovery blend. Mm-hmm. A lot of people would be like, okay, I don't know how to do that. That feels really overwhelming. That feels really scary. How did you feel? And then what was the action that you took to like overcome that?
Yeah.
Because you've really like made shit happen.
Yeah, but I just want to make it clear. I made shit happen with no understanding at the start. I could not have been more excluded from... I'll put it this way. I had to literally... The first thing I Googled was, how do you make a nutritional product? Or am I allowed to? I thought these things had to be made by the bloody government or something, where you have all these regulations. And so I just Googled, how do you make a nutritional product? And then I found out you need to go through a contract manufacturer. Googled Gold Coast contract manufacturers. And so it was 12 months of not knowing anything, throwing myself in the deep end, and even having meetings with these manufacturers where, you know, I was rocking up to these places some here in Burleigh actually, where I was just so naive. I had no idea what questions to ask. I didn't know anything. And so I remember so clearly this one meeting with the first manufacturer I went to. We had like an hour meeting. I told him everything that I was trying to do, all these goals I wanted to hit with these products. And then he's like, so what sort of first purchase order, like amount would you want to do? And I had the amount of capital that I had to invest. And I was like, I even exaggerate that a little bit. I was like, maybe like, I think I said like $20,000 or something, which was more than I was willing to spend, just to sound like, got some coin.
Yeah.
And he was just like, right. And their minimum order was, I think it was like $500,000. And I was just like, I'm so sorry for wasting your time. And just so many uncomfortable things like that from just throwing yourself in the deep end with no knowledge. But once again, they're just lessons that you learn. Like I wouldn't have known that. And so it was just every day being open to learn. And I just love learning. Like that's a strength that I have. It's why my PhD is in learning, and just everything that I do during the day is to learn. And that 12 months to learn how to create a product was, yeah, exactly that. Just one step at a time. Even how do you make a website? How do you make a business Instagram account? How do you make reels? How do you market things? Like I had to just learn every single thing that you can imagine from scratch, which was really difficult, but yeah, it's worked.
Okay. All right. Wow. So you also are doing your PhD.
Mm-hmm.
How many hours do you reckon that requires like each week? Is that like really intense? Because it sounds intense.
Yeah, it is. How many hours a week? How many hours a week should I be spending on it? Or do I spend?
No, do.
I don't know if my supervisors will be watching this podcast, but
please click off if you're listening.
A PhD for most people is the most time demanding thing that anyone can do for like the least amount of pay. It's paid very poorly, and it is an unbelievable amount of work and time. So most people I go to uni with and I share an office with, they're sleeping under their desk. And I did this as well back in my master's. They're just all...
so you did your master's and now you're doing your PhD.
Yeah.
So you're just loving at uni.
I love learning. That's literally what it comes down to, is I just love being better each day, and to do that you have to learn. So yeah, I did 4 years of undergrad. So I did an exercise science degree, did an honours degree, did a master's degree, and now doing a PhD. So I love the learning process.
Okay.
But yeah, most PhDs, you don't see that person for the 3 or 4 years it takes them. It's just consumes their life. They don't have a social life. They don't. Yeah.
Wait, it takes 3 or 4 years? I thought it was a year.
PhDs, yeah, no, at least 3 to 4. So you can't submit until at least 3 years. Yeah. So I'm in my 3rd year now.
Okay. And are you hoping this will be the end, or have you got next year as well?
It all depends on how much time I invest into it. I could pump it out before the end of this year if I wanted, but with the business side of things, it's literally like I'm juggling 2 mammoth full-time tasks. And so I literally just go through changes of this week I'll focus more on the business, this week I'll focus more on PhD, and just sort of juggling between that. Now that these bars are coming out, the PhD won't be getting too much love for a little bit. So it all just depends on when and how much time I invest into it. So my goal is to graduate or submit early next year, and hopefully become Dr. Dan sort of this time next year.
Dr. Dan.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. So yeah, your schedule sounds nuts. I would kind of love to hear how you manage everything, because that's insane. I feel like I struggle to manage my life, and I'm like, I don't have that level of intensity in it. So yeah, how do you manage your life? What are your kind of like skills, priorities, and all of that? Because I commend you in being still at like the social events, like the social running groups and all of those, and you're always like, hey, how are you going? I'm like,
they are very important.
Sure you're not having a meltdown?
Look, we had a little chat earlier today about how I sort of frame my life in little chapters. So the chapter that I'm in now isn't going to continue for the rest of my life, and the chapter that I'm in now wasn't the same as it was 2 to 5 years ago. But right now, life, to give you an example day.
Yeah.
Pretty much every single morning, I start the day at like 4 because I'm just a morning person. I love the mornings, and I don't like night times.
Yes,
I go to bed very, very early and get up very early. But every morning will be either the gym at 4, going for a run or a training session at 4, working on the business, or going for a surf. And so I love to get most of my I like doing business stuff early in the morning because there's just no distractions at all. So I might work on the business from like 4 till 8, get a large chunk of work done. And then I'll sort of switch my focus to PhD during the day, because that's when everyone's emailing, supervisors are up, chat to them, have your meetings. So there might be PhD from 8 till 3 or 4. And then I flick back to business and go business from 5 till 8 or whenever I go to bed. And that's literally nearly every day at the moment. And over the last 3 years, I've been really proud that I've also done these physical achievements because they have demanded a lot of my time. And so the difference between this year and the last couple of years is that nearly every morning at 4, I'd get up and go for a run. And so training for ultra marathons is just time consuming during the week. So I could literally run like a training, and it sounds so dicky when you say it, but like a marathon in the morning before you sort of start your day.
What?
Was a pretty normal thing last year and the year before. So I would, and I'm so thankful for my brother. He just froths like coming on these runs. He'd jump on the bike and we would get up even earlier if I'd have a 40 plus K run scheduled. So I'd get up at like 3:30, just pitch black, and just my brother and I just cruising down the Gold Coast just with no one out. I actually really, really enjoyed that. It was just like I don't know, such a content feeling, like just, anyway, that's a different story.
No, that's beautiful.
Yeah, no, it was really nice. But yeah, so right now it is very structured, very full on, which I love. And I'm not going to pretend that, a lot of people hear that and they're like, oh, like, I'm so sorry, you're always busy. And I just hate that mindset because I love what I do every single day. Like, I genuinely can't wait to get up and start working on the business. And I haven't taken like a cent of profit from it. I haven't actually got any, financial reimbursement. I just love every single thing that I'm doing, and it just makes it really easy to prioritize things. So if there's a distraction, if there's something that doesn't align with my vision, I can very easily now say no. Whereas previously that was a big weakness of mine, was sort of spreading myself thin. So yeah, that's...
Oh, that makes me feel so happy when you're like, I love what I do.
Yeah, no, I do. It's, yeah.
And then the social aspect. So you clearly like make it an effort to make sure you're still connecting with people. Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, at the moment, the run clubs are definitely the way to do it. But I'm just very lucky that a lot of my friends, they're very supportive of what I do, but they're also very involved. So like, my biggest customers for Stoked Nutrition are some of my best mates. They have all the merch, they buy all my stuff, and they're there at my ultra marathon events. I run with them, I do these things, and so I'm very thankful for that sort of aligns with these sort of hustle things that I do. But then other social things, it just doesn't interest me, if I'm completely honest. I don't, not a lot of people know that, but like, I don't drink at all, and so I don't really enjoy going out late nights. I just can't do late nights anyway, and so I never really feel the urge to have to socialize at night. It's always just like more wholesome things, like run clubs on Wednesday mornings. Like, how good are they? You just get up early, go for a trot, go for a swim, have decent conversations. It's actually got a purpose behind it. Yeah, and that's sort of what I need to do in my behaviors. Is it needs to have a purpose. If I feel like I'm just existing in a room with people where I don't have a purpose there, that's where I feel uncomfortable. So yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah, that's a great structure. Okay, and so what about like discipline and getting things done? Are you ever just like, I don't feel like doing today, like that just sounds like a lot?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you do have moments where you're like, I don't feel like doing this. Yeah,
absolutely. But I guess that's what excites me in a way, because that's where how should I put this? I think every bit of discomfort that you can bring into your life is an opportunity, because everything that I do comes back to my vision, which is to become the best possible version of myself, right? Like, every decision that I make comes back to that. And to do that, you need to welcome discomfort into your life, because that's how you grow and that's how you become better, and then that aligns with my vision. So if there's any moments like that, that's what I actually thrive off, because I go, this is going to suck, but just do it anyway, because I know that feeling afterwards. And it's such an easy thing to say, but having that feeling and turning it into a habit where when you feel that resistance, it's now just like you're going to do it anyway. That's a really cool habit to get into. And that's what I'm trying to build. So every time I have that feeling, I just know the more I override this, which isn't every time, but the more I override this feeling of, shit, I don't want to do this, the more of a habit it's going to become. And then it makes life easier.
Yes, that's huge, because I think a lot of people will be like, I don't feel like doing it, therefore it mustn't be right, I shouldn't do it. Because it's like even fun things, sometimes you don't feel like doing it. Like sometimes before podcasts, I'm like, I don't feel like doing it. And then as soon as I'm recording, I'm like loving it.
Yeah.
Do you know Mel Robbins?
Yes.
Yes, I love her. She's like, if you did everything you didn't want to do, you would have everything you've ever wanted.
Love that. Absolutely.
And I was like, that is so true.
Yeah.
Because we don't feel like, a lot of the time we don't feel like doing anything. Because like obviously our natural state is probably just to be like safe, conserve energy, be in the known. And then everything you want to do is probably like outside of that.
Yep.
So you just have to like not listen.
Yep. Even things like something as simple as going for a swim or going for a surf. If it's cold, the last thing you feel like doing is going to just jump in the ocean. But then how damn good do you feel after it?
You never regret going in the ocean unless you get bitten by a shark.
Yeah,
Touch wood. Like, I was going for my Arvo beach walk yesterday, and then I was just like, I really want to go for a swim. Like, I'm not in my togs, but I was like, just do it. Go for it. Yeah. And it was like a little bit cold, but it was so refreshing. You feel so alive. Yeah. And it's just like you got to make yourself do all those little things.
Well, it's just like, it's, going back to you're choosing the path of least resistance or most resistance, and the more you can lean into that resistance and make that a habit, the more positive outcomes you're going to get from that. I think one thing that I have, and I read this every single day, is I try to always choose the hard right over the easy wrong. And I think making that a habit in your life, it sounds counterproductive, because if you're doing hard things all the time and making hard decisions, doesn't that make life hard? But it actually makes life a hell of a lot easier. Even things like, if you need to have a difficult conversation with someone, like a loved one, the easy decision is just to not do that and let that, just put that to the side. But for the long run, that's what makes life hard, is the shit relationship or the fact that it hasn't been said. And so I always just try to lean in, because we know what the right thing to do is. It's never a question of what is the right thing. It's just, do you have the strength and the courage to go and do that? And I think the more hard things like that we can do, the better off that we are and the easier life is. Yeah.
Mic drop. That's so true. Yeah, it's like that quote where it's like, if you do what is easy, your life will be hard. And if you do what's hard, your life will be easy.
Exactly it.
That's so true. Damn. I love that. And you feel satisfied. Like going back to when you were like, when I don't feel like doing something, I do it anyway. And then you do feel so satisfied. When I look back on like a day where I'm like, that was a good day, it's not necessarily where I've like gone to the beach and laid in the sun and read a book and just like done the easy things. It's like, when I did the workout I didn't feel like doing, when I sat down and did the work that I didn't feel like doing. Yep. And then I'm like, and then you feel so good about yourself because you're like being in alignment with what you want to do.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, I have a really random, quick logistical question.
Yeah.
Like, when do you like do your food shop and like prep for the week? Do you prep your food for the week and stuff like that?
And that's another thing where that makes life easier for you so Sunday is the answer. Okay. Sunday is washing, grocery shop, meal prep. That's something I'm very passionate about, my grocery shop and meal prep. Okay. But that's, once again, it's just a matter of setting yourself up for success. It's not about putting out fires during the week and they're your hard things you're doing. You can also put yourself in a position to have a productive week, and that's Sundays for me. So, I love it. There's just something so rewarding about just cruising down the aisles, like getting good food and going home and doing a massive meal prep. And it's got a purpose. And so, people hear of, like the day I just told you about from 4 a.m. till bedtime is all, boring, hard things. But even when I socialize, it just needs a purpose. So I do have days where I am recovering, but instead of staying up until midnight watching movies, eating ice cream, I might go to bed earlier or spend more time cooking myself like a really nice, nutritious meal, or I just make sure everything has a purpose. So even downtime, like I don't half-ass that. Like I love going down and watching a sunset, like taking some food down, or, recently I've just been going for some little night walks, like just along the beach where there's no one out, and that just really refreshes and recharges me. It's not just like a half-assed effort at trying to have time off that ends up making you more stressed because you've just wasted an hour. It's actual, meaningful and purposeful.
Oh, I like that. So it's not just you sitting on your phone, like scrolling, being like, oh, this is chill time. You're like, if it's going to be chill, we're going to make it chill.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you've got this really down pack. I'm like, oh, there's so many things I need to tweak.
none of this is done perfectly. It's just what I'm trying to create, and that's the important thing. Please, I don't want to make it sound like I've got freaking life sorted. It's just these are the things that I'm currently working on, and that's the way I see it. And it's like the way I sort of define success is when your behaviors match your values. And so that's what I sort of reflect on each day and go, have my actions during that day, have they reflected what I value? So if you, for example, if we couldn't communicate in any way, you had no idea what I value, but if you shadowed me for a full 24 hours and watched every single thing that I did for that whole time, would your reflection of me be what I truly value? Like, if I said I valued my health, but I then didn't do any physical activity, I just sat there in bed scrolling for hours in the morning and night, eating shit, that doesn't portray someone who values their health. And so, yeah, that's what I reflect on each day and just make sure those things are aligned. And it fluctuates, but if you just keep coming back to that, I feel like it aligns you better.
What are your probably like top 3 values?
Oh, it's actually something I'm working on updating because it changes a lot. And so actually I can't tell you at the moment because it's something that I spend a lot of time thinking about and reflecting over, and they're currently changing with how much involvement in business stuff that I'm doing. So at the moment, the only real clear thing that I have is that vision of just becoming the best possible version of myself and trying to tie things back to that.
That's so funny that you say it changes because and this is just me from the outside looking in, but I'm like, if somebody was like, what do you think Ricky Dann values? I'll be like, he values achievement, ambition, and success, but in a good way.
Yeah.
He values social connection. He values his health. And I would say you value family time as well. Last week he couldn't do this podcast because he was with his family and Billy Elliot.
Sorry about that.
But that's just what I think. You value pushing yourself. See? What do you think of those?
No, they're all values that I value highly. I guess what I'm thinking of is their ranking.
Oh, but that's
what
they
changes.
Interchange.
Yeah, no, and that's what I'm saying. That's what changes. I don't think the values have changed as much, but as we go through the different chapters in our life, the focus that we have shifts between them, I feel. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Wow. So I was listening to a podcast you were on before this podcast, and you talked about doing the small things every day and the really unsexy things that people don't put on Instagram that are just really important. Yeah. I don't know how long ago you did that podcast, but is that something that you're still, maybe getting up at the same time every day, going to bed early, all of that? Is that something you still value?
Absolutely. I can't even remember what I said in that one, but yeah, it's just getting into a habit of doing the hard things. And so I think most people just, when they hear the word, hard, they think of these massive things you see on Instagram, whereas my focus is on the little tiny daily things that are hard. A really bad example was last night I was unpacking the dishwasher, chucking all the plates away, and I went to shut the cupboard and leave the kitchen. I shut the cupboard and I shut it just hard enough so it rebounded back open a little bit, and I just kept walking and I went, I noticed that cupboard was just open. The easy thing here to do would just be keep walking to my room, but I went, no, stop, come back, shut the cupboard, and then go back. And it just sounds like such a trivial, has no effect on your life whatsoever, apart from the process that you just went through to reflect over, I have a decision to make here. This is the easy option. This is a hard option. Go and do that hard option, because that's where habits grow, I feel. And so I'm not sure what examples I gave in that other podcast, but I just think the big things are too over glamorized. Like the 100-mile reel and the Ironman stuff. Like, yeah, they're cool achievements, and everybody seems to ask about the event where all of the lessons that I've learned came from the process and the person that I became to get there. That makes sense?
All the little decisions.
Yeah. It's the Tuesday morning I woke up at 2:30 a.m. when it was raining and cold and no one knew about, but I still decided to go for that run. That's freaking hard. It's those things that no one sees, that you know deep down inside. Like, you have that integrity. You're like, yeah, I'm gonna do the things that I say I'm gonna do. That takes a long time to build, and I'm just super proud that, like, I know that I will do anything that I tell myself that I can do now, and that's really cool. Yeah.
Oh, that is really cool.
Yeah.
How do you talk to yourself inside your brain? Inside your brain? You know what I mean? What's your self-talk like?
Oh, it's probably too much of it, to be honest.
What do you mean there's too much of it?
I don't know. One of my weaknesses is probably just like over-analyzing stuff and just thinking too much about things when I probably can just take more action. Because that's something that I've been definitely working on. Over the last 5 years, I used to always talk a lot about the things that I would do, and I'd always advertise, yeah, I'm going to go and do this, I'm going to do this, with very little action. And now I'm trying to do the opposite and just shut up and put your head down and do things and then tell people if they ask. So focusing a lot more on doing. So, yeah, I'm trying to limit the amount of internal chat that goes on. I don't know. It's mostly positive. It's mostly positive. It's not like some of the stuff you hear where it's all like, you see ultra marathon people that are doing it because they're fighting their demons and they're like, oh, I'm doing this because of this happened at my childhood and all this stuff. Whereas like, I'm more drawn to things. I'm not sort of pushing myself, if that makes sense. So it's all very positive reinforcement. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're constantly proving to yourself that, like, oh, you actually can do this thing. Like, you doing that 100-miler, you're like, I can't do that. And you were like, well, now we can.
Yeah. Bloody oath. And a really cool tool that I use, and everyone probably has heard of the cookie jar, like the David Goggins analogy, where you have your own cookie jar, where for me, it's literally just a piece of paper I have at home. It's titled the cookie jar, and it has every single hard thing that I've done in the last, I think I made it 3 years ago. Yeah, when I read Goggins' book, I finished that chapter and wrote on the top of a piece of paper, cookie jar, and started writing things. And so it had my first ever marathon, my first 100K ride, like all the physical things, but also a lot of personal tough things that I've done, which I won't go into much here. And that's that's my internal talk when things are shit, when things suck, when I'm hurting during events, because you reflect over that and go, look at what you've done, keep going. Because that's like so inspiring, I think, is proving yourself and being proud of yourself. Like, I feel like a lot of people try and get inspired by other people's actions, and which is inspiring, but there is nothing more powerful, I feel, than being proud of yourself and what you have done previously. So that's a lot of the internal chat as well.
Yes, there's definitely a huge sense of like satisfaction and pride in yourself when you do the things.
Yeah.
Do you know the podcast Modern Wisdom?
Yeah, with Chris
Williams or
yeah,
something?
Yeah,
there was this like snippet that was taken out from it, and he was just like, the moment when you get to the point where you're like, this is hard, I want to quit, that's the moment when most people do quit. And so if you can push past that, that's where you're going to see the success. What do you think of that?
Oh, I agree. Absolutely. And that's probably what differentiates an ordinary life with an extraordinary life, I feel. Like, I want to live an extraordinary life, and it takes not doing ordinary things to get there. And if you know what the ordinary behavior or decision would be probably follow a different path to do something that other people aren't doing. And yeah, like the whole quitting thing, and Goggins calls it the 40% rule or 60% rule or something, where you have 40% left when you think you're done. Yeah, that's got merit to it, but you need to experience that for yourself and experiment with it as well, because it's one thing just to throw yourself in the deep end and break yourself, but I think having slow progressions, doing harder and harder and harder things, just compounds and builds on itself. So yeah, just trying to get to that stage as often as you can where, yep, most people would quit here and maybe just take one more step today. And then next week when you're in that same position, take 2 more steps and yeah.
Yeah, it's very motivating because then you're like, okay, this is normal. Like it's normal to feel this way. Have you had moments where you want to quit in your business?
Huh.
Or you're like, why am I doing this? Like, this is really hard, or any of that?
Absolutely. Every day, because I have invested a lot of time and my own money, and I'm not naive to the risks involved. It's starting a business is a very risky thing. However, I just have built the confidence that I know there's just no question that I'm going to make it work. And so whenever I have those thoughts of like, or it's more of reminders of like, yeah, this is risky as hell. These are all the things you've done and sort of sacrificed. I just know that through doing challenges like I've done, I know that I can do anything that I set my mind to. And so that's just my reassurance. Like, yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah. Okay. So before we go into the Fast Five, which is how we end every podcast, I just want to get some practical tips from you for me, but also for the listeners, because I'm feeling very inspired and jacked up from hearing how you do life, how you view life, and your discipline and habits. And I'm sure you've built up to this. You didn't just go from like lying on the couch to then doing these long, hard days, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so somebody's listening to this and they're like, oh, yeah, I have a few like good habits here and there, but I procrastinate a lot. I say I'm going to do something and I don't do it. I feel like I'm wasting a lot of time here. And they are like, cool, I want to be more disciplined, get shit done and take action. Where would you recommend people start to like get into the habits you have?
That's a big question as well.
You can load on it if you want.
Yeah.
I can do elevator music. Do, 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 do.
I think what my advice would be is to provide yourself with your own evidence that like anything is possible, because the one life-changing thing that's happened to me, and I feel like everyone has their own like life-changing story. This happened finishing the Ironman triathlon was the first time in my life that I committed to something and completed something that I genuinely believe was impossible. And I'm a very goal-oriented person. All through uni, all through my life, I've treasured my goals. I've had them on my whiteboard, and I've always been very ambitious, but they've all been goals that I knew I could achieve. And that Ironman was the first time I signed up, paid money, and even on the day when I took the first step, I didn't know if I could do it. And crossing that finish line was also, I don't think anyone saw me, but I had a little tear come out of my eye, because it was genuinely this feeling of like, holy shit, I need to rethink every trajectory from business, academic, relationships, like what I am truly capable of. And so I had to reset all of my goals with this new scale, knowing that genuinely anything was impossible. And so what that's done is I'm now just like drawn and obsessed with like, what can I do in a way? So it's kind of like a lot of people and a lot of advice is just like push, grind, get gritty, do all these hard things with all these negative connotations. Whereas my advice is explore your potential and pick something that you look up to and go, man, that's the sort of person that I want to become. And then you will just become drawn to that. So like procrastination now, like it's become a lot less of a burden than it used to be, because I am just drawn to so many things where I was relying on the discipline, the motivation, and all these things. So yeah, find a way to provide yourself with the evidence that anything is possible, and I think your behaviors will naturally change for the better.
Wow, that feels so expansive thinking about that. It does.
Yeah.
Because you're now like, after that Ironman, you reflected and you were like, oh my God, I've been playing it so small.
Yeah.
I've been asking for the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Whereas like now you're like, I know what's possible.
Yeah.
And anything's possible.
It is. It sounds, I used to cringe hearing that. I hated that saying, anything is possible, because I just thought it was a load of shit.
You're like, ugh.
And it's actually Ironman's motto. So everywhere on the Ironman event, just anything is possible. Anything is possible. It's like, fuck right, eh? But that was the first time I started believing it, and that has literally reshaped my life in every area. That's why I've started the PhD. It's why I've started business. It's why, yeah, I've made a lot of my decisions because I've realized the potential impact I can have. Yeah. So just take action on something simple and easy to start, and just keep working and be consistent. That's all I can really say.
That's huge. Yeah. Be consistent. Just put one foot in front of the other. And then you'll be able to have days like Ricky Dann.
In this chapter. Absolutely.
Yeah. I definitely don't have days like you. But that's fine, you know?
It is fine.
That's fine. I'm doing me and you're doing you.
That's it.
Okay, so we end with the fast five. I'm going to ask you 5 questions and you're just going to answer whatever comes to your mind. I used to say like, you know, a sentence and it'd be really quick, but it never ends up being like that. And that is A-okay.
Okay.
All right. First of all, what's been one of the most life-changing books you've ever read?
Oh, life-changing. It'd be the very, very first like self-development book I ever read or listened to on Audible. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Stephen Covey or something. It's a really old book, and it's just like, it's like a textbook. It's like just so dense in theory, and it's just all about personal growth and development. And that's what sort of kickstarted the whole journey. And I just remember my old housemate in Brizzy, we would just go for walks along the Brisbane River, along that Coronation Drive stretch.
Yeah, and where you see everyone from college and you're like, oh, hey, yep, nice, yep, good to see you. Literally. Oh, another person, yep.
50 awkward half conversations in one walk. Well, we would just chuck in our headphones and listen to our own books.
That's
and
a mood.
That was the first one I ever read, and I think I've read every single self-help development book under the sun, and there has been nothing new since that first book that I read. I think it's just the most wholesome. It covers everything you need to know, I think, about life, and it just aligns what your values are and your behaviors. Similar like to my what I was saying about success, where they have to align. It just brings all that together. And that's, yeah, no book has really come close to that. Great.
So we can just skip reading all the other books.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah. The narrator is just so boring and monotone. It's the worst listen, but the content is gold.
Should I be like, hey, can I read your book? Offer to
that
do
would. I'll try to imagine that.
I'll change accents and be like, hello, welcome.
Jeez.
Okay, noted. Mm-hmm. Okay, I already know the answer to this, but I want everybody else to hear it. Who is your biggest inspiration and why?
Biggest inspiration?
Who do you look up to?
Oh, like business-wise? We had a chat earlier.
Oh, wait, you can say, yeah. I was meaning that guy, but you can say two.
Because inspiration in general, like I don't, like my mind when you said that didn't go to like business, like Nick Bear is who we were talking about before.
Yeah.
I've shaped a lot of my life choices around what he's done, because I just have never aligned more with someone in my life, just the way his mindset. But my mind just went straight to my mum and my brother.
That's so cute. Yeah. I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say your mum.
No, it is. It's just the reason that I am trying to get better every day, because I just, Yeah, I can't even really articulate why, but they are the reason that I want to be better every day. So, yeah.
Do you have any other siblings?
No.
Okay, it'd be really awkward if you did.
Oh, and the sister we all hate.
My sister's not an inspiration. I'm talking about you. My sister is an inspiration.
Yeah.
Okay. Just to clarify.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet. Okay, those are three. Very great.
Absolutely.
Very great inspirations. Okay, what's been one of the most game-changing things? Okay, actually, I'm going to reframe this. You go to bed really early. Please give us some beautiful advice on how to like actually get to sleep earlier so we can wake up earlier. Like asking for a friend because I'm really struggling to like I'll be in bed and I'm ready and I'm tired.
Yeah.
But I'm just not falling asleep. So how do we set up our sleep so we can, actually have a good sleep?
Yeah. That is hands down the most important thing in life, I feel like. And that's coming from the biggest mistake that I've made was not prioritizing sleep for a long, long time. And that hurt and I struggled. Whereas now everything revolves around my sleeping routine. And that's my advice is make it a routine, regardless of how you feel, how tired you are. Obviously, life happens and things pop up where you have night events, but 99.9% of the time, just make a consistent bedtime where you are in bed at least trying to fall asleep. There are so many things you can do to try and optimize sleep through having a cool, dark room with all these things. I actually use a little like eye mask and earplugs now because it just blocks out everything and that's really helped.
It's really hot when you have a girl over.
Oh, so hot.
Sorry, let me just put on my eye mask and earplugs. That could be an ick.
I reckon that's a little red flag.
But anyway, continue.
Yeah.
Or it's a green flag because she's like, oh, he values his sleep.
That's a red flag. Don't try and justify that.
Okay. Okay, so you do that on nights when ladies aren't over.
Absolutely. Which is like, no. Moving on. Yeah, just making it consistent. And it's the thing I'm like most proud of now is how consistent my bedtime and wake time is, but it makes life hell when I need to stay up late to have dinners with people or go out for a night out, and I really struggle with that. But I just think that's 0.5% of my life, but 99% of the time it's very, very good.
Luckily, people on the Gold Coast we barely hang out in the evening, you know. And if somebody's like, "Hey, you want to do dinner?" I'm like, "Yeah, but we're making it 5:30."
Yeah,
we're making it early.
Yeah,
yeah.
I never used to be a morning person. I hated getting up early and always stayed up late. Probably college would have that effect, I think.
Yeah.
But I used to just think that you were born as like a morning person or a night person, and that you can't change. But I have drastically changed from what I used to be. So you can just make it consistent. Even when you're not tired, go to bed, wake up. You'll be super tired those first mornings when you set your alarm for 5 or whatever. But just be consistent. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe have like a week where you're just grinding it out. You're going to wake up. And then, because I think like if you just say you set your alarm at like 4, obviously you'll be really tired and you'll be tired during the day. Yep. But hopefully you'll be so tired that in the evening you'll fall asleep. Yeah,
and don't nap in the arvo. That's a little thing that I used to do.
Damn, I love a power nap.
I know. I mean, everyone's different. It may work for you, but if I nap during the day or in the arvo, just no chance of falling asleep. Okay,
what time is your like time that you're like, I will be in bed?
8 o'clock.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, pretty consistent at 8.
Okay.
Yeah, and then want to be asleep by like 8:30.
Oh, it doesn't take you long to get to sleep. Okay, cool.
Most nights, yeah.
Got it. All right, noted. Thanks. Definitely just asked that question for myself, but hopefully it helped other people. It's fine. Okay, what is the worst piece of advice you've ever been given?
Worst?
Yeah.
Huh. Never been asked that before. There's been a lot of like, what if this happens, and then meaning like, what are all the bad things that can happen? I think my whole family in general are very conservative. They're all teachers and professions, and And so I started off in PE teaching at uni, thinking I was going to be a PE teacher, purely based off job security and all these things. And so I think the large majority of my life, I was always surrounded by the risks of risky decisions, and that being the emphasis, going, what if this happens? What if this doesn't work? And so it's not like any massive, terrible piece of advice. It's probably just the consistent messaging on the focus on what bad things can happen. Because the best thing that I've ever heard is just asking yourself the question, I don't know who said it, but it's practically just, what if it turned out better than you could ever imagine? And I literally think of that before I have any big decision to make, whether it's starting a business, whether you're starting running, or whether you're going to ask a girl out. It's like, what if that turns out better than you could ever imagine? What if that girl turns into a second date, and then your wife, and then your family? And, it's like, that's such a more powerful question to ask than what if blah, blah, blah.
Wow. Okay, wait. What's the question? What's the best?
What if it turned out better than you could ever imagine?
Oh.
So I have that written on my computer. So every time I think business-wise, I picture where I want to be in like 20 years. And like, I'm not screwing around. Like, I want to make a global billion-dollar brand that helps the action sport community around the world. And like, I am openly happy to say that. And so just the thought of like, what if it turns out better than that really drives me to take that action and keep pursuing it.
Oh my gosh. You know what I just got a vision of you like 100% completing that, and then you looking back on this interview and being like, oh, little Ricky.
Hey, 40-year-old Ricky.
Hope you're still surfing and waking up early.
Absolutely. Very different chapter of my life, though. Hopefully, it's not a grind like at the moment. But.
No, yeah, it'll be different. It would be a different chapter. That's a really, really good question, because usually I ask the question of what's the worst that can happen, in the sense that like, what's the worst can happen if I write down all the things that could happen, and then I'm like, well, I can live with that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think Tim Ferriss has a really good TED talk on fear setting. I haven't watched it in a little while, but he essentially just says, instead of goal setting, if you have something you want to chase, write down every single possible thing that can go wrong, and then write like a little mini contingency plan for each one of those things. And it always works out that you're still going to be alive. You're not going to be homeless on the street, broke. And I really like that concept as well, of like clearly defining, this is the worst case scenario, and you know what? It'll still be okay.
Yes, that's the other question I say. I say, will you die? I go, no.
Yeah.
No, okay, do it. You're like, okay.
Yeah.
Because like I always think, because like I'm fortunate where like I've gone to private school, my family are like they're okay. That like I'm like, even if you sent it in say business and you went broke, like you're not gonna be homeless or on the street. And I know that's like coming from a privileged position, but then I'm like, well, you're in this position, so you may as well.
So true.
Utilize it.
Yeah. There's someone not in your position wishing they were.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So true. Okay. I think we're on the last question. I can't count.
That's
but
right.
I believe we are. Okay.
Sorry, these haven't been very fast.
Sorry?
Haven't been very fast answers, sorry.
No, that's why I was like, let's start them now before the podcast gets to like 2 hours, and then I have Joe Rogan do all. Okay.
Number 5.
What is your favorite quote? I feel like you've already dropped it. Okay, no. I'm still going to ask.
There's so many. Favorite quote. Oh, actually, I'm an idiot. Of course I have one. I don't know the whole quote. Man in the arena is just hands down, it gets me through anything. I think it's just the pinnacle of how powerful being vulnerable can be. And just, that is hands down. I don't even know how to think about that. Yeah. The man in the arena. If you haven't heard of that quote, go and look at it, because it's quite a lengthy thing. Excuse me. But yeah, I just think that is so powerful.
Can you give us a little taste test of the quote for the people who don't know it?
Oh, I genuinely, I wouldn't be able to cite any of it. It's just about how the critics don't count. The credit should go to the person that is, laying on the floor in battle, dust on their face, putting themselves out there and being vulnerable. And it just puts a really cool spin on even like the grind hustle, right? Like it's showing that it's okay to be vulnerable and, I don't know. I haven't really given it a whole lot of thought. I just read that and just feel really good.
No, 100%, because I love that quote as well. It is a bit of a big bopper, but you did summarize it well. And it's just saying how like the people who are watching in the crowd, their opinion isn't valid because they're not in the arena with dust and blood on their face and like fighting. It's only the people who are in the arena that actually matter. Yeah. So because it says like the critic who doesn't count or something like that. And yeah, it's really beautiful. Do you know?
I think like any sort of social media stuff and interactions you get through comments and likes and all that sort of stuff, it's very good to insert that concept into that because, you know, if you go to check their Instagram, are they doing any of the stuff you're doing? Are they putting themselves out there? And even just like general advice to people on or when to accept advice and from who. Like look at these people and go, are they in a position to give you constructive feedback or are they criticizing?
Yes. Yeah. I always like think, okay, who's this person who I'm getting advice from? What have they done? And you know, like you wouldn't take marriage advice from somebody who's like divorced, you know? But you might take advice from that person about like the $1 billion business they've built. Like, so or the $1 million business, I'll accept it.
Millions are fine.
Millions are fine. Okay. And the last question, we're going on to number 6.
Number 6.
Oh, I just dabbed. That means it's time to wrap things up. If you could embed a habit, a mindset into the listeners' ears to make them a better them, what are you going to inhabit? Inhabit? What are you going to insert?
Can you say that again? If
you could embed a habit or a mindset into the listeners' ears or minds, what would it be? Something to just better them. And they will either believe this mindset or do this habit consistently.
That's a cool question.
Thanks.
Probably something as simple as take action, because I think so many people have incredible ideas, amazing potential that they're not taking action on. And the thought, so going back to like my personal mission statement is to become the best possible version of myself. That doesn't naturally, organically grow. You have to take action on that. And the thought of a world where every single person is living to their full potential is pretty freaking exciting. And so if I had anything, it would be to take action on whatever they're thinking, because the thought of how many millions of people have lived on this planet and not taken action on their dream or their big ambition because of insert whatever reason, that really makes me sad. So it'd probably be just to take action on that thing, and probably hearing this, they know what that thing is.
That is golden. Ricky Dann, thank you so much for coming on. Honestly, this has been amazing. I've been like trying to make an active effort to like keep podcasts, 30 to 45 minutes, and like
what's this been?
It's an hour and 15 and it has just flown by.
Time flies.
Yeah, I'm genuinely so inspired, and you are such a beautiful member of the community, and every time I see you I feel so happy. I'm like, Ricky Dann. And my housemate's like, Ricky Dann. You met her one time.
Who's your housemate?
Sav.
Right.
I brought her to the Wednesday morning, and she was like, he was the best person I spoke to because he was so friendly.
There's a thing with people saying my full name is what? Ricky Dann.
Ricky Dann. Ricky Dann.
Thank you. It's the feeling's mutual. So yeah, I love what you're doing. It is very inspiring as well. So I'm honoured to be here.
Oh, thank you. And if the people want to find you on socials, what are your handles?
What are
your handles? Please plug.
I'm mostly just on Instagram, just Ricky Dann with an underscore. But the important page, Stoked Nutrition with an underscore. Anything nutrition, mindset, business related, hit that one up. But either of those, yeah.
Yeah, and there's some great content. And then do you have a date of when the bars are being released?
Oh, I actually will be finding out Monday next week, so I can't say that at the moment.
Okay, secret. Go see the Instagram page for the announcement then.
Yeah, I'm still locking that in, but I can nearly guarantee it'll be the end of September. So once they're actually made, I've got I'm going to call it a business trip organised to New Zealand to get some content for the bars, and then I'll be releasing them as soon as I get back. So I think sort of like end of September, the bars will come out.
Amazing.
And my life will get very exciting.
If it isn't already.
If it isn't already.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys for tuning in and listening. We really appreciate it. Feel free to share this podcast around. Tag us if you share it on the old social media. You can click follow and subscribe, as that really supports the channel, and always leaving a review makes me extra happy. So that's everything I have to say. Thanks, guys. I'll see you next week. Bye.
See you guys.
See you guys.
Catch you, mate.
You did so well.
Oh, thanks.